facing a 400-meter sheer cliff in the Judean desert. The 10th Roman Legion did not look for a weak spot. They did not wait for the defenders to starve. Instead, 8,000 heavy legionnaires picked up shovels. They dumped 100,000 tons of earth, rock, and timber into a barren ravine. They did not just attack a fortress, they built an artificial mountain to reach it. In 73 AD, the Great Jewish Revolt was dead, everywhere except one place, Masada. Built by King Herod the Great, Masada was not merely a stronghold, it was a luxury palace disguised as an impregnable mountain citadel. The flat plateau rose 400 meters directly above the Dead Sea. On three sides, sheer vertical drop-offs made climbing impossible. The only access was the Snake Path, a narrow, winding ledge where attackers could only walk single file. A handful of defenders at the top could crush an entire army with stones. Inside, 960 rebels, known as the Sicarii, held the summit. They were led by Eleazar ben Yair. They were not starving fugitives. Herod had carved massive underground cisterns into the rock, holding millions of gallons of rainwater. The mountain held storehouses packed with wheat, dates, wine, and oil. The dry desert air kept food preserved for decades. They could survive on top of that rock for years without coming down. Below them, the Roman army stood in the suffocating heat of the desert floor. From a pure military perspective, attacking Masada was completely unnecessary. The rebels on the mountain posed zero strategic threat to the empire. They had no cavalry, they had no siege engine, they had no way to break out and challenge Roman control of Judea. Rome could have left two cohorts to watch the paths and walked away. Here's where it gets strange. The Roman governor, Lucius Flavius Silva, did not leave a small guard. He marched the entire 10th Legion for Tensis to the base of the rock, along with auxiliary units and thousands of Jewish captives. His force exceeded 15,000 men. Why burn millions of sesterces and thousands of men on an isolated rock in the desert? Because of the psychological doctrine of Roman power. The empire was built on an absolute rule. No one defies Rome and survives. If a small band of rebels remained free on top of a mountain, it proved Rome had limits, and Rome refused to have limits. Silva's mission was not tactical, it was ideological. He had to demonstrate that no fortress on earth was beyond the reach of the legion. Silva began by trapping the defenders inside their mountain cave. He built the circumvallation, a continuous stone wall enclosing the entire base of Masada, 8 kilometers long, 3 meters high, interlocked with 12 massive watchtowers and 8 fortified legionary camps. No one could sneak out, no supply could enter. The rebels were sealed inside a stone oven. Then Silva surveyed the geography of the mountain. On the western side lay a natural rocky spur called the White Promontory. It was still 300 feet below the fortress wall, but it was the only viable foundation. Silva ordered his military engineers to build a giant siege ramp directly over the spur. And this part, almost nobody talks about this. Think about what that actually means. Under scorching temperatures reaching 45 degrees Celsius, thousands of workers hauled raw earth, stone boulders, and massive wooden beams. From the ramparts above, the Sicarii rained down heavy boulders, iron darts, and burning pit. To protect the engineers, Roman craftsmen constructed mobile wooden mantlets, plated with thick iron sheets. Work never stopped. Day after day, the iron-plated frames pushed forward. Layer by layer, legionaries rammed earth and logs into the gap. Ton by ton, the desert floor rose to meet the sky. After months of unrelenting labor, the ramp reached 200 meters in length and 70 meters in height. The engineers' achievement was unprecedented in ancient warfare. By the spring of 73 AD, the artificial mountain was finished. On the flat stone platform at the top of the ramp, Silva deployed his final weapon, a 70-foot wooden siege tower, wrapped entirely in heavy iron plates to resist fire. At its base hung a massive iron-headed battering ram. On the upper decks, catapults and ballista poured a constant stream of stones and iron bolts into the defenders on the wall. The tower was rolled forward. The heavy iron ram slammed into Herod's perimeter wall. Rhythmic, thunderous strikes shook the mountain. Stone fractured. Mortar crumbled. The outer stone wall collapsed inward. Inside, the Sicarii had anticipated the breach. Behind the stone wall, they had built a thick inner barrier, made of heavy wooden beams filled with dense earth. When the Roman rams struck this wall, the soft earth absorbed the kinetic energy without cracking. The wall held. Silva immediately shifted tactic. He ordered fire arrows launched into the wooden beam. The timber caught fire. For hours, a fierce north wind blew the flames back toward the Roman siege tower, threatening to ignite it. The defenders cheered. Then, at sunset, the wind suddenly shifted to the south. The roaring wall of fire blew directly into the wooden barrier, consuming it completely. The path into Masada was open. Silva did not storm the citadel in the dark. He surrounded the breach with elite legionnaires and posted night watches. The final assault was scheduled for first light, at dawn. The 10th Legion formed up. Crested helmets gleamed in the morning sun. Shields locked together, swords drawn. They charged through the smoking breach, shouting their battle cry. They expected a desperate, blood-soaked last stand. Instead, they walked into absolute silence. No arrows met them. No spears were thrown. Only column after column of black smoke rising from burning storehouses. The night before, Eleazar ben Yair had gathered the 960 defenders. He delivered a final speech, convincing them that dying free was noble, while living as Roman slaves was eternal disgrace. Because Jewish law strictly forbade suicide, they devised a systematic execution pact. Each head of a household executed his own family. Then, 10 men were chosen by drawing clay lot to execute the remaining men. Finally, one man killed the remaining 9 before falling upon his own sword next to his family. When the Romans cleared the burning ruin, they found 960 bodies laid out in order. Only 2 women and 5 children survived, having hidden in a subterranean water conduit. The Romans had moved a mountain to crush an enemy, yet when they reached the summit, there was no enemy left to defeat. Silva won the rock, but the victory felt hollow. Still, the brutal message to the ancient world was carved into stone forever. If you hide on top of a mountain, Rome will build a new mountain to pull you down.